The grand ballroom doors swung open and every head in the room turned. She stood at the entrance in a blue maid's uniform, white apron pressed flat against her waist, holding a framed document against her chest. The chandeliers blazed above the crowd of black ties and evening gowns. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. And then, silence. The man at the center of the room, the one everyone had been celebrating just moments before, went completely pale because the document she was holding, it bore his company's seal, his company's name, and at the top, dimmed in bold black letters, her name, Amara Thompson, Original Incorporator. How did a black maid end up at the door of a billionaire's party, holding proof that she built everything he claimed to own? Let's go back to the beginning. Amara Thompson grew up understanding the weight of things that didn't belong to her. She grew up in a small apartment on the east side of the city where the radiator knocked all winter and the ceiling leaked every spring. Her mother cleaned offices for 20 years, the kind of work that leaves your hands raw and your back bent but never quite makes the rent easy. Amara watched her mother move through those buildings like a ghost, invisible to the people who filled them by day. She swore to herself, silently and early, that she would build something real, something with her name on it. She was brilliant in ways her neighborhood didn't always have room for. She studied accounting at a community college while working weekends, read business law in borrowed library books, and filled 3 spiral notebooks with the framework of a company she dreamed up by the time she was 24. A logistics and data management firm that would revolutionize how mid-sized companies track their supply chains. She called it North Star Solutions. But brilliance without capital is just a dream on paper. And Amara had paper, plenty of it, and almost nothing else. To keep the lights on while she built North Star Solutions from scratch, Amara took a boom as a domestic worker through a staffing agency. She cleaned houses, prepared meals, and maintained estates for the city's wealthiest families. She was professional, punctual, and proud. She never let the work diminish her. She carried her notebooks in her bag. She took calls from potential investors on her lunch breaks. She filed the company's incorporation documents herself, late one Tuesday night at a public library terminal. With trembling hands and a heart full of fire, North Star Solutions was born. On paper, at least. What it needed now was a partner, someone with connections, someone with money. That's when Amara met Richard Calloway. Richard Calloway was the kind of man who entered rooms as though he had personally built them. Silver-haired, broad-shouldered, and draped in the casual confidence of inherited wealth, he had made a modest fortune in real estate and was looking, as he often told people at cocktail parties, to diversify to something with real potential. He heard about North Star Solutions through a mutual contact at a networking event Amara had scraped together the entry fee to attend. He agreed to meet her. He was charming. He was enthusiastic. He called her idea visionary, and her projections the most thoughtful he had seen in years. And then, in the same breath, he offered her a deal that would change everything, though not in the way she imagined. Richard proposed a partnership. He would provide the funding, $250,000 to get North Star off the ground, and the industry connections she lacked. Amara would provide the intellectual foundation, the systems architecture, and the operational strategy. In writing, they agreed to a split, 60% ownership to Amara as founder and architect, 40% to Richard as investor. But Richard had a condition, a strange one. He insisted that for optics, his word, Amara's name would not appear prominently in the company's public materials. Not on the website, not in the press releases, not in the pitch decks for future investors. He told her it was about brand neutrality. He told her their target market skewed toward older, conservative clients who responded better to certain kinds of leadership profiles. He smiled when he said it. He said it like it was just business. Amara hesitated. She knew exactly what he meant, even if he would never say it plainly. But she also looked at those $250,000 and thought about her mother's raw hands and her leaking ceiling and 3 notebooks full of her life's work. She signed. For 2 years, Amara Thompson built North Star Solutions from the inside out. She wrote the code. She designed the client onboarding systems. She flew coach to client meetings while Richard flew business. She answered emails at midnight. She trained the first 10 employees personally. She was the engine of the entire operation. And North Star Solutions grew. It grew fast, and it grew beautifully, exactly the way Amara had always known it would. That's when things began to shift. Richard started introducing himself to clients as the founder. Just the founder. Not co-founder, not investor. The founder. Amara noticed but said nothing. Told herself it was a slip, an ego thing, harmless. Then new investors came on board, lured by Richard's old money network, and somehow the story of how North Star was built began to change. Amara's name disappeared further from documents. Her role was listed in internal materials as Director of Operations. The incorporation papers, the originals, the ones with her name at the top, well, were never mentioned. One evening, Amara overheard Richard on a phone call. She wasn't meant to hear it. She had come back to the office for a forgotten notebook, always her notebook, and his voice carried down the hallway. She's good at what she does, he was saying, very capable. But let's be honest, the IP belongs to the company now, and the company belongs to us. Us, not her, us, as though she were a vendor, as though she were staff. She stood in that hallway for a long time. The lights buzzed above her. Her heart beat very slowly and very loudly. She said nothing that night. She picked up her notebook. She walked out to her car, and then she drove straight home and called a lawyer. But here's what you need to understand, and this is the part Richard Calloway never counted on. Amara had never let the original incorporation documents leave her possession. She had filed them herself. She had the originals. She had the paper trail showing every system she built, every line of code she wrote, every client contract she drafted. She had emails, she had timestamps, she had 3 notebooks, dated and signed, that predated Richard Calloway's involvement by 18 months. She had everything, everything. The lawsuit took 8 months to prepare. During those 8 months, Amara kept working. She smiled in meetings. She trained new hires. She built the Q3 client portal from scratch, while her attorney quietly assembled one of the most airtight founder rights cases the city had seen in a decade. Richard, meanwhile, was planning a celebration. He had just closed a $10 million Series A investment round, the biggest in North Star's history, secured almost entirely because of the company's proprietary systems. Her systems. He booked the largest ballroom at the city's most exclusive hotel, black tie, open bar, 200 guests. He called it a Founders Gala. He did not invite Amara Thompson. He had her escorted out of the building that same afternoon, citing a restructuring of the operations team. Security walked her to her car while Richard shook hands with investors upstairs. She loaded a single box. She did not cry until she reached the parking garage exit, and then only for a moment. The night of the gala, Richard Calloway stood at the center of his golden ballroom and felt, for the first time in a long time, like he had truly won. He was mid-toast, champagne raised, crowd attentive, when the ballroom doors opened. Amara Thompson walked in. She wore no gown, she wore no jewelry. She stood in a blue maid's uniform, a deliberate choice, a statement as precise as any legal document. And in her hands she held a framed copy of North Star Solutions' original articles of incorporation, the ones she had filed, the ones with her name, the ones her attorney had already submitted to the court. The room went very quiet. Richard's champagne glass stopped halfway to his mouth. His face moved through several expressions in the space of 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, and then something that looked very much like fear. "My name is Amara Thompson," she said, her voice calm and clear, and carrying all the way to the back of the room. "I founded this company. I built the systems that paid for this room, and tomorrow morning a judge is going to confirm that." She set the framed document on the nearest table, turned around and walked back out through the doors she had come in through. She did not look back. The lawsuit concluded 4 months later. The judge's ruling was unambiguous. Amara Thompson was confirmed as the original founder and majority intellectual property holder of North Star Solutions. Richard Calloway retained his minority investor stake, nothing more. He was removed from the board. The company's public materials were corrected. Her name went where it had always belonged, at the top. North Star Solutions, under Amara's full leadership, went on to close a $23 million Series B the following year. She hired a team of 12, every one of them brilliant, every one of them welcomed through the front door. She kept the framed incorporation documents on the wall of her new office, not as a trophy, as a reminder. There is a particular kind of courage that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't raise its voice in the boardroom or defend itself in the hallway. It simply keeps working. It keeps building. It keeps the receipts. Mara Thompson never stopped being who she was, not when the world made her invisible, not when she was handed a box and walked to her car, not even when she had every reason to give up on the things she had built with her own hands. She had always known what her name was worth. The world just needed a little longer to catch up.